composition is one of the favorites in the Islamic galleries of the San Diego Museum of Art. It is on view at all times because it's a glazed ceramic tile painting, so it's not a work on paper or a textile that needs to rotate. It's therefore not light sensitive. It was originally a composition that was probably part of a domestic interior space in the city of Isfahan in the country of Iran. During the early 20th century, especially between the years of about 1910 to 1925, there's a very interesting period of the revival of the 17th century Safavid style Persian painting traditions, especially as seen in the production of cuerda seca tile painting. So cuerda seca refers to the technique of using a rope to mask the outlines that would delineate each part of the composition of the tile painting. A brush would later have been used to brush on more delicate features as seen on the face, but each one of the major colored glaze outlines would have been demarcated by the use of a small string, therefore the term cuerda seca. So during this revival period, there was very high quality workmanship being done during the early 20th century in Iran in styles and color palettes that very much resonated with the 17th century Safavid painting style during the time especially of the king named Shah Abbas. And in fact, in this scene, which is a court scene of dancing and feasting, we see a portrait of a king here with the wiry mustache that very much looks like that of other known portraits of Shah Abbas himself. He's shown seated here in this lively, ebullient, joyful composition, seated with a female companion. They're shown with bottles of wine, drinking together, eating together. Courtiers, who are males, are sitting around, also enjoying the scenes at court. And down here we have female musicians and female acrobats in this very lively scene of dancing and doing flips. We have fruits and wine, and overall the scene is just one of amusement and entertainment. It's not particularly connected with any individual narrative scene. Instead, it's a scene that would have adorned the inside of probably a banquet hall in a domestic interior space. This particular composition has a very interesting provenance history. It was originally sent from Iran to New York to be part of the initial interior design of the Chrysler Building, the foyer of the Chrysler Building in New York City. However, when the tiles arrived in New York, they were completely broken, shattered into various pieces, so the designers of the Chrysler Building foyer decided not to use them, and they reverted back to a dealer of Islamic art in New York City. Some years later, Doris Duke, who is an internationally renowned collector of Islamic art, purchased the tile painting, intending to have it repaired and set up in her home called Shangri-La in Honolulu, Hawaii. At that time, though, it had become 1940. World War II had broken out, and her home in Honolulu had been requisitioned by the U.S. Army as a garrison. Therefore, the painting was never sent to Doris Duke's home, and she relinquished ownership of it. So it stayed with the dealer for several years until another dealer in La Jolla by the name of Syed Hussein, who had an excellent gallery of Islamic art here in La Jolla, purchased the painting from his colleague in New York. It arrived here in San Diego, in La Jolla, and was then purchased by a Mrs. Caroline Snyder, Mrs. Irving T. Snyder, who was a member of this museum's Asian Arts Council. At that time, there was no curator of Asian art here at the museum, and the Asian Arts Council very much functioned in a bit of a curatorial role, making acquisitions and purchases and making important donations to the San Diego Museum of Art. Her funds allowed the Asian Arts Council to bring this painting into the museum as part of its collection, and so it's been in the collection here since 1955. When it was first put on view, it had only been very hastily repaired. The broken tiles were glued together very quickly and then in-painted very shoddily, and they were put up in a corridor space here at the museum. At one time, in about 1970, our then curator of decorative arts came down the corridor and saw that two of the tiles were popping off of the wall. And he went to push them back in, and then 4 more tiles started to pop off. And so he held them bodily against the wall until a maintenance person came by and helped him remove the tiles safely from the wall. Since then, the tiles have been sitting in storage, and because they were not well repaired, they were never shown again. So in 2004, we were able to initiate a campaign to conserve these tile paintings properly, and we raised more than $20,000, especially with the help of the Persian community here in San Diego, with the help of the Persian Cultural Center of San Diego and other individual donors, to be able to bring the tile painting into its splendor that we see it today. It is with great difficulty that you would see all the many seams that are running through each one of the tiles in the composition. They've been so skillfully repaired by our conservator, Beverly Perkins. They've also been mounted in a way that is very seismically safe. Each tile is set in these acrylic trays, so that if there were ever to be an earthquake, as could happen here in Southern California, each one of the tiles would remain safe. The tiles can also then be easily taken down and moved, and therefore they're not cemented into the wall of the building, which can cause a lot of trauma to the tiles themselves, which is why they wound up broken probably when they arrived in New York initially, having been very hastily and hurriedly chiseled off the wall of their initial context, the initial home and wall where they were installed. So it now remains on view at all times here at the San Diego Museum of Art as a centerpiece of our Islamic galleries.